Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome all viewers. Today I wanted to talk about homosexuality. And the reason I wanted to make a video about this topic is because it's something that I get asked about a lot. It's an issue that's very important to people and it can be very divisive. Oftentimes the first question a non-Muslim will ask me is, well, what do you have to say about homosexuals? What's your opinion? It's an issue that's so important to some people that based on your opinion or your response, they will categorize you as good or bad. However, in the United States, we have people of all different beliefs and all types of different opinions living together. You'll find Muslims and homosexuals in the same family, studying together in the same classrooms, working together at the same jobs, interacting with each other all the time. And rather than jumping to these extremes where we demonize each other and exaggerate, I wanted to try to make a video that is balanced, but at the same time stays true to what I believe Islam teaches. And hopefully at the end of this video, people who might have been to a certain extreme on either side can become a bit more balanced and realize that even if we disagree about this topic, we can still respect each other and we can have empathy and realize that each side has particular arguments that hold weight. It's just certain people, they get their sense of right and wrong from one source and other people get it from another. And at the end of the day, we can simply agree to disagree and still coexist. So what I would like to do is first share some of the pro-homosexuality arguments that I commonly hear, and then share the Islamic perspective. So the first point that I often hear coming from those who are pro-homosexuality, those who think it's a good thing, is that they will say, well, why should anyone prevent love? Love is a beautiful thing, whether it's between two men or two women. Why would anyone be against love? And I think this is actually a very convincing argument. I mean, how could anyone be against love? The thing is I would say that this particular argument, it doesn't pertain to the subject. And the reason I say that is because when we talk about homosexuality, we're not talking about love. So for example, you can have two men who love each other. They're in a very loving relationship. However, it's not a homosexual relationship. Likewise, you can have two men who are in a homosexual relationship not love each other. The fact of the matter is, when we're discussing homosexuality, we're not discussing love, rather we are discussing sex. And this isn't just my opinion, but rather if you look at the very definition of homosexuality, then you'll see that this is the case. So for example, if we look at the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the definition of homosexuality is sexual attraction or the tendency to direct sexual desire toward another of the same sex, or sexual activity with another of the same sex. The Oxford Dictionary defines homosexuality as the quality or characteristic of being sexually attracted solely to people of one's own sex. The Collins Dictionary defines it as sexual attraction or sexual relations with members of the same sex. Dictionary.com says sexual desire or behavior directed toward a person or persons of one's own sex. And the Cambridge Dictionary defines homosexual as a person who is sexually attracted to people of the same sex and not to people of the opposite sex. So here we just looked at 5 different sources defining homosexuality, and we didn't see love mentioned a single time. It all has to do with sexual relations. And when it comes to sexual relations from an Islamic perspective, there are certain rules and regulations that one is expected to follow. So at the end of the day, Muslims believe that if somebody wants to fulfill their sexual desires, then it is upon a man and a woman to get married. And that is just simply what we believe. Perhaps you don't believe that, and we can agree to disagree. Furthermore, I think that the next point we should discuss when it comes to people arguing for homosexuality is people will say that, this is a natural inclination that certain people have. Perhaps someone is born and they just naturally are sexually attracted to the same sex. So if that's how somebody feels, if that just feels natural to them, then why would anyone believe that there's something wrong with that? And I can see why this would be considered a very strong argument on their behalf. However, from an Islamic perspective, we believe something that is fundamental to the life of this world is controlling one's desires. That this life is a test. People are tested in different ways. And it's not only upon homosexuals to try to live in accordance with God's law when it comes to controlling their desires, but it's something that heterosexuals also deal with. It's something that all people deal with. And sometimes someone's natural inclination can be to something that we all can agree is bad. Some people might have a natural inclination to lie or cheat or steal or hurt somebody. So just saying that something being a natural inclination makes it okay is something that we can all agree isn't necessarily true. Now perhaps people will feel, well, homosexuality isn't a bad thing, and people might not believe in God, they might not believe in God's law, so at the end of the day we can just agree to disagree. The third point I'd like to mention is that people will argue that if it's consenting adults, then at the end of the day it's none of our business. These people are adults. If they want to have homosexual relations with one another, then we shouldn't be involved. We should let them be free to do whatever they want to do. It's simply none of our business. And you know what? As a Muslim, I agree 100% that it's none of our business. We have already established that when we talk about homosexuality, we're talking about sex. And I believe that someone's sex life is none of our business. Someone's sexual preferences is none of our business. That's something that's personal. I mean, there's a countless amount of things that can turn on someone sexually, that they can be sexually attracted to, whether they be homosexual or heterosexual. And just like I don't want my heterosexual friends telling me what sexually turns them on, I feel the same way about homosexuals or anyone for that matter. I don't go around telling people what turns me on sexually, and I'm not interested about hearing what anyone else is turned on by sexually. Unless two people are involved in a sexual relationship with one another, I think it's no one else's business. But the fact of the matter is, when people bring it up, when people make it public, when people force you to share your opinion about it, they make it your business. And to be perfectly honest, I feel like it's actually quite sad that we have people who want to make their identity about their sexual preference. You know, we can clearly see that if there's a heterosexual, if he made that sexual preference the foundation of his identity, we would see that as very tasteless. And when I think of homosexuals that I've known over the years, I've had classmates who are homosexual, family members, teachers. I think it's a travesty to look at them and to think, oh, they're homosexuals. Because there are things that are way more important about these people, way more significant, that should define their character, not their sexual preference. Some of them are incredible artists. They're smart, funny, caring. To sort of put those characteristics to the side and put their sexuality first, I feel is a great injustice. So with all that said, I would agree that it's none of our business, and people should sort of keep their sexual preferences private in general. But once you make it a public thing and you force people to have an opinion about it, you can't then say that it's nobody's business. You're making it other people's business. And the last point I would like to mention is that people will say that it simply doesn't affect us. If people want to be homosexuals, they want to have homosexual relationships, it doesn't affect us. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect the society. So let people do what they want to do. And I think this sort of relates to the previous point mentioned in that it's none of our business. I would agree. If people kept it private, if people kept it to themselves, I don't think it would affect the society. I don't think it would affect me. I don't think it would affect anybody. But once you make it other people's business, you make it a public issue, it does start to affect the society. People who might feel they have a religious obligation to not be involved in homosexuality find themselves being forced to support it. This affects people. Also, once it's brought into the public sphere, we can see that now, like even in elementary schools, people are teaching homosexuality. Now you have children's books, you have cartoons, where homosexuality is being put on display. Children are being taught that it's okay. And one thing that religious people do is they put their trust in God's judgment. Why? Because God is all-knowing. God knows how one thing leads to another. Whereas us human beings, we can't tell the future. We might not have the foresight to see the long-term effects and results of our actions. So for example, this open and public advocacy for homosexuality has led to a whole new movement, which is the transgender identity movement. And now we have kids being taught that they can pick whatever gender they want. We have kids taking hormones. There's a countless amount of gender identities that are now coming to fruition. And in some places there's even legislation where people are being forced to refer to certain people by whatever gender they identify with. We've had debates about what bathrooms certain people should use. And 10, 20, 30 years ago, people could have never imagined that we would be having these discussions. I mean, these are things that even right now people can't wrap their head around. And without getting into transgender identity and the specifics of it, because that's a whole nother topic for another video, the point is that one thing leads to another. And this sort of thing, it 100% affects the society. To say that it doesn't have an effect on people is 100% false. It's not true. These things do have an effect on people. It does have an effect on the society. It has an effect on what children are being taught in school, what they see on TV, what children's books are being published. It affects how people perceive religion and religious people. And there's even the issue of legislation where people are being forced to be involved, so on and so forth. So to say that it doesn't affect us is simply not true. Now again, at the end of the day, we can all agree to disagree. And the point of this video wasn't to try to convince you to change your mind. The point was for us to understand each other, to have empathy for one another, whereas I can understand your arguments and your point of view, and hopefully you can understand mine, and you can understand where Muslims are coming from, as well as other religious people and even non-religious people. Because right now there's too much demonization, there's too much exaggeration when it comes to people with opposing views. People are losing the ability to just simply disagree with one another. We might disagree about things, but we should be balanced and we should be realistic about what those disagreements really are and where they come from. The foundation of American values is that people are free to believe what they want to believe. That does it for this video. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Jazakumullahu khairan, and thank you for watching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.